He's worn a clergy collar, carried a coaching whistle, and now he carries the weight of a city's needs on his shoulders with humility, strength, and relentless hope. Todd Blake doesn't just talk about community, he builds it. As executive director of Parkview Community Mission and a voice for the voiceless across Lynchburg, Virginia, Todd leads with both backbone and compassion. From food insecurity to workforce impact, he's in the trenches turning dignity into policy and neighbors into partners. Love your neighbor isn't just a tagline, it's a way of life. This is the Cultivate Experience. Welcome, relational leaders and listeners. This is Cultivate, your podcast destination where we celebrate thriving relational leaders and encourage each other along the influence journey. I am Wendy Adams, your host and strategic guide. I believe work shouldn't be a four-letter word, but should inspire, challenge, and fulfill. Through a high challenge and high support model, we will explore the recipe for relational leadership that drives meaningful change. After all, as leaders, we're either driving progress or we're driving the problem. So let's grow together. Welcome back to a fresh episode of Cultivate. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming a courageous leader, community champion, and a dear friend who lives Love Your Neighbor Out Loud. Todd Blake, Executive Director with Parkview Community Mission. I am overjoyed to have you join us for the Cultivate Experience.
I'm excited to be here. I think I've told you this in meetings, Wendy. When you walk in a room, I just know that room is going to have just more positive energy, and I know this is going to be the same. So I'm excited to be with you.
Well, Todd, it doesn't happen unless you say yes. And I am so appreciative of that. And, I do appreciate that when I walk in, I can feel that, but it's because I'm feeding off of who's in that room as well. And so that we get to spend time together and the audience is recognizing a theme here. These are folks who are pouring into me, hopefully as much as I'm pouring back. And so, Todd, you and I, our green room time started some time ago in the spaces that we are able to work in, to live in, to serve in together. You know as well as I do. I've heard you say it. We talk about this in places that we serve. The why is what keeps us grounded. So let's start there. I know a lot of, share with the audience, what's that personal mission statement for you? Your why, the organization you're serving, and how that comes together.
A lot of who I am and how I want to lead comes out of, my background. And, again, I was in church ministry for 20 years. And, just the idea of, caring for people, the idea of loving your neighbor is really important to me. So trying to help people bring a sense of excellence to that, how can I bring that sense of excellence to how I love others, and how can I equip and help others do that at a high level is really important to me. And so trying to figure out constantly how to do that well, and evaluate how to do that well and how to invest in other people is really important to me.
Intentionality, excellence, and paying it forward. I mean, we could stop right there. You've left us with right there so much to chew on and really to take a look. Is that how I'm walking out? Whatever our titles may be.
Right.
Because we know this whole leadership thing is influence, and we are all influencing someone or someone's. And are we doing it with those purposes in mind, right? To be intentional and to make sure that it doesn't just resign and stay with us. Here at Cultivate, we believe and walk out relational leadership, that high challenge, high support model, right? We're here to, and that takes a lot of self-awareness. Who's showing up and how am I showing up? Is it with authenticity?
Yeah.
You've worn a lot of hats doing these things, right? You mentioned it, your ministry background as a pastor. You've been a coach, chaplain, and now you're leading in this space, this nonprofit space with real people going through some hard things. What's shaped you most to this point as you're walking out this role with Parkview?
Back up to, those years of, my full-time role being as a senior pastor. My theology over the years got much simpler. As I spent more time, in the Sermon on the Mount, kind of Jesus' greatest hits. You know, it got a whole lot simpler. How are we loving our neighbor as an expression of our love for God? And that's for me personally. And then I think, a lot of our staff and volunteers are part of what Parkview does because it is an expression of their faith. And that's not a requirement, but
Yeah.
certainly it is a common thread. So how can I, as a person, kind of help people do that well? So, you mentioned a coach. I coached high school soccer for 7 years. I just gave it up because my youngest graduated high school, and I need to focus on some other things. But I love coaching soccer. Um, and so, coached girls soccer for 7 years, the high school level. And you think about it, if you have a player on the field, and her real skill and talent is for scoring goals. I'm not putting her as a goalkeeper, right? I want to put her where she can, thrive and bring her very best to the team for herself, but also for the whole collective effort of what we're trying to do together. And so, how can we do that with people in whatever setting it is that we're leading, with staff? How can we set them up to bring their very best to the table? And that's not to say I don't always get that right, but still the effort there to find how to help people thrive in what they're best at, I think is really a fun experiment every day. And I think nonprofits should do that too. I want Parkview to be really excellent at what we're really excellent at. But that
Yes.
doesn't mean I have to do what everybody else does. There are other people out there that are doing wonderful work. And if they're doing it well, I don't have to try to replicate it and do it at a lesser level. Somebody else already out there doing it better than Parkview could do it. So also Parkview bringing to the whole space out in the greater Lynchburg area what we do uniquely well, and then work with other organizations to do other things uniquely well. I think is really important.
In all of that, I hear investment, and you're investing in the individual, right? Talking about as a coach, you're investing in that team
Mhm.
member, right?
Mhm.
And lifting and raising up those skills that are there. You're investing in the community and saying, "Hey, this is Parkview. We're gonna bring excellence to what we're called to do." And because of that, that's gonna raise and lift up others to be excellent in
Yeah,
their space. You said, so we don't have to do, we're actually not called to do it all, right?
you're not.
Right.
No.
And so we're going to get to the big C word here shortly, that collaboration
Mhm.
space, right?
Mhm.
And what that really, really means. You're not just
Yep.
serving vulnerable people. You are truly neighboring. You're taking, I love how you said it, like, let's get down to the core of what it truly means to love one another, right? So love your neighbor. How do you do that in a practical sense there at Parkview?
Yeah. When I came to Parkview, next month will be 4 years that I've been here. Um, and very early on, there was neighbor language already here when I came.
Mm,
I
mhm.
didn't bring it here. They were already talking it. I simply said, let's lean in even harder into that language, and how we speak about our neighbors, how we speak to our neighbors, how we treat our neighbors, how we speak up for them, and even more recently, how we try to give them an opportunity to speak up for themselves.
Yes.
So,
Giving
so
them a
neighbor
voice.
means way more than the person next to me in proximity in geography. Neighbor is, I think, it's a very dense word. There's a lot to
Mhm.
it. What does it mean
Mhm.
to treat someone as my neighbor? Uh, at Parkview, it means it's again. I preached every Sunday for 20 years, pretty much. I speak in threes, and my staff makes fun of me. Your good friend Lisa, she makes fun of me for speaking in threes, but I'll say over and over with the, the folks we serve, our neighbors. They're not a client, customer, or constituent. They're our neighbor. They're not a problem to be solved. They're our neighbor. That means we want to know their name, we want to know their story, and if we do that, we can serve them with more dignity. We can we get invited to journey with them as
Yeah.
they seek to transform their life, and we can do it at the pace that works for them. Some folks that's slow, some folks that's faster. But when we know them and serve them with dignity, we can walk with them at whatever pace they're ready. But I do think it begins with an intentionality to want to know who they are as a person. They're not just a number in a system. And with the amount of people we're serving, we do have to work in a lot of systems.
Mm-hmm.
But that neighbor facing interaction, they're not somebody I got to type into the database, right? They're the
Yeah.
person right here in front of me. Um, and I saw it early on. I mean, it was a board member who she's here every Thursday checking neighbors into our food pantry, and I was sitting with her learning how all of that worked when I began my time here. And young man was walking up the table before he even arrived to the table. She called him by name. She asked about his mother. She knew mom was at home chronically ill. He's getting food for the family. He's caring for his chronically ill mother. She knew that before he ever got to the table. She, whether that was her language at that point or not, she treated him as her neighbor.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
I simply said, we're going to lean in on that.
And what a great truth for all of, I mean, in what you're doing and how you're serving, some may say, well, okay, Todd, that makes sense. But that's the foundation of how we should treat each other, right?
Mhm.
Seen,
Mhm.
heard. We are not our situations. We are people and individual. And what that did, and it builds trust,
It
right?
does.
Because when I treat you with dignity, when I get to know you, well, we know life is messy.
Mhm.
There are courageous conversations that need to be had. And when we have that as the foundation, the trust, then we can step into those spaces. Right? You've helped Parkview grow significantly, and not just in numbers, but how your neighbors are served, how you're able to meet different needs. Yes, with dignity, with care and respect. How do you protect dignity and keep it at its core when systems
Mhm.
and resources often default to being transactional?
So much of our society is very transactional.
Yeah.
It, I dealt with it in pretty much every job I've ever done. I mean,
Hmm.
there's this tendency to default to transactional relationships, and so I think one is we have incredible staff here that you know I'm not the only one saying this. Other staff members who are holding us to a sense of excellence in the way we treat our neighbors. What we experience, I mean, some folks, for the first time they come to somewhere like Parkview, there is some shame in coming to a food
Hmm.
pantry. For,
Hmm.
and so, how can we help them shed that shame when they arrive? It starts with an intentionality. It starts with, you know, when our staff meets, we check in. Hey, have you heard from this neighbor? Have you seen this person? How are they doing? What are they experiencing? How can we serve them well? But we have those kinds of conversations as a staff. Um, so we're serving, in an organization where we're serving 130,000 times a year in those interactions with a neighbor, but also getting down that level of talking about checking in on very specific people that we know.
Hmm.
Um, and so it shows up in a few different ways. And some of it is the very level of need. Somebody's going to continue to need food on a regular basis, clothing on a regular basis. It starts there. And so we experience it there. So give you a couple of examples. In my 4 years, seen an increase in the number of Spanish-speaking neighbors coming to our food pantry and our clothing canal, the clothing closet. Um, so intentionality about our signage, that it's
Mm.
bilingual. Recipes provided are both in Spanish and culturally appropriate items available in our pantry. The other significant uptick, we've seen an uptick in the number of Muslim neighbors coming to our food
Hmm.
pantry. Um, and so, again, that's why choice is important. It is not dignified if I give my Muslim neighbor a pork product. And so when I allow them choice, then I allow them to, pick the items that are best for their family, whether it is a religious dietary restriction, it is
Yes.
something health related, allergy, whatever it may be. Um, so making that experience very dignified in terms of the agency that comes along with choice. And also we find that we have a life skills institute where we're helping our neighbors with their career development and looking for employment. We have financial literacy classes. That offer of a soft skills class for employment or a financial literacy class is received much better when it comes from somebody our neighbor knows, a
Yes.
volunteer they've gotten to know over time, rather than a stranger they've never met. And so that relationship also allows us to have the kind of conversations that foster that kind of transformation, that helps a neighbor get into the workforce or get a handle on their finances, things like that. That is best done in relationship.
And taking what you just shared up front, where it can become very transactional.
Mhm.
Okay, here's some food, here's some clothes, and bringing it to a place of transformational, right? Because we know the world can struggle with what is happening in the nonprofit space. Are we just giving a handout?
Mhm.
Are we really helping people to be
Right.
better and to be able to do this on their own, which is dignity, right?
Mhm.
That's what they want. There's a
Mhm.
misconception at times of, well, people don't want, no, they want to be able to. Not many may know this, but one of the reasons that you and I connected so well with the mission at Parkview is because I know what it's like to walk through and be dependent for a point in time on a food pantry. Prior to my space in Lynchburg, that's the
Mhm.
space that I was in a transitional period that had me there. And it made a tremendous difference because there are choices that are out there where I felt like I was seen
Mhm.
and heard and understood from week to week, and others where, you know what? Yeah, I need to eat, but maybe not that bad
Right.
because did not feel like a human being who was walking through a difficult time. I
Right.
just felt like it was a transaction and I was a
Right.
number.
Yeah.
And so that the impact that you're making, and then the ripple when we start talking about, and now what else do you need beyond
Right.
this
How someone
daily
come
need?
alongside you. Yeah.
Yes,
And I'll
yes,
give
yeah.
you it may hit you as a funny example, but one of the influences on me as a leader, um, is Ted Lasso. You familiar with the show?
Yeah.
I mean, I've even preached a sermon a couple times called "The Gospel According to Ted Lasso," and here's why: because I love that show as a soccer coach, um, but also I just love the way he approached leading his team.
Mhm.
I mean, as an American football coach, he was not equipped to be coach in the Premier League, um, and so he wasn't bringing a whole lot of tactical skill to coaching. But what he's really good at is people.
Yeah.
He's good at seeing people. He's really curious about people and what is fueling them, what is holding them back, what they're wrestling with, and yeah, it's just such a beautiful, untoxic version of masculinity. It is
Mm.
just a beautiful version of seeing people as whole people. That it just really works for me. Ted Lasso is one of my both leadership and coaching icons.
Well, and I can see that. It does make me chuckle that there was a whole sermon. But I can see that beyond even your work in your executive director role. Again, talking about the collaboration and then your responsibility as a leader to the rest of the community. You and I have the benefit of serving together on the RC Vein board, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And bringing a higher level of education to the nonprofit sector here specifically in Central Virginia. We believe that it is our responsibility to develop other nonprofit leaders, right? Learn from our mistakes,
Mhm.
learn from our experiences. Where are you seeing the biggest gap between good intentions and then lasting impact?
Mhm. Well, one question we hear a lot is someone will come to visit Parkview, because they want to learn about what we do,
Hmm.
because they want to go start a nonprofit. And it happened today with one of my coworkers. She toured someone around. This person's stated goal was they wanted to start a nonprofit, and we've talked about this in our board meetings at CBIC. Let's do a workshop on maybe not starting that nonprofit. You know,
Yes.
um, that's what I'm seeing. I don't see this being done, so I'm going to do it. When a little bit of research will show someone is doing it, and there's probably somebody doing it well. So how can I come alongside them? How can I partner with them in doing that? Um, and so we don't always need to replicate rather than participate in what people are doing. I think that is one gap, perhaps, is we don't always need to start another nonprofit. The greater Lynchburg area has a few nonprofits.
Just a few.
Um, right. So maybe we don't start another one. Maybe we explore who's really getting after it and serving well in our community. And
Absolutely.
how do we help them elevate their work? You know.
I love that. I love that word because that's exactly where are those gaps per se, right? They're like you said, they're doing it well. They need more resource.
Hmm.
And that resource isn't just finances. It's a
Right.
people resource, right? It's
Hmm.
a talent resource. It's a time resource. And so that we could really step into what it means to collaborate. That's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Because for the person who walks through and says, "Hey, I want to start this because there's this need." Well, let's not squelch that. But
Right.
with 1.8 million plus nonprofits in the US, I'm sure there's someone out there. So
Hmm.
let's, like you said, take that time to educate and then to be able to elevate
Right.
the cause that's there and the need that needs to be met. We've got to pay a really close attention
Hmm.
to that gap and speaking in and remembering because it's not about us and our name on something,
Right.
not even just individually us, but an organization, right? We're in this space right now where it is so important, and I'll throw it out there, plug rooting for rivals.
Hmm.
First of all, that's not how we should view ourselves as a rival, but we
Right.
should be out there lifting each other up because that's what has us step into and address these so big God-sized tasks and goals that are out there for in a way that's actually going to be sustainable.
I have a particular staff member who, she preaches the rooting for rivals methodology and philosophy every day to our whole staff. And she has a personal connection to that particular mission, obviously. But I do believe. I mean, I take some of my favorite sports teams that I follow. They're better because they have a rival to compete against. They're better because they're pursuing excellence.
Yes.
And I think our nonprofits can look at it that way, but also see it as an opportunity to serve with other nonprofits in our community. Yeah, we're all wanting donor dollars and volunteer hours. We all need it, but at the same time, I think there's a whole lot more to be gained by collaborating and working together. Again, I don't want Parkview to be good at everything. We're not going to be good at everything. I
You're not
just want us to
called to
be.
be good at everything.
No, absolutely. We're not. I just want us to, there's 6 programs that we do have to pursue excellence in those. Um,
Absolutely.
you know, and to, I tell people there's 3 ways, kind of 3 big ways someone can help support what Parkview does. Obviously we want, donor dollars. We have to have those. We obviously need volunteer hours. But also this other thing you can share is just your network of
Hmm.
influence. Everybody we come in contact with has a network of influence. So just share what Parkview is doing. Share what other organizations are doing really well. Um, I felt incredibly welcome to the nonprofit space in the 4 years I have been in this role. Um, the idea of nonprofits fighting with one another, I have not experienced personally in my time. I'm not going to say that it hasn't happened before or doesn't still go
Yes.
on now. It has not been my experience. I have felt incredibly welcomed into the community and people that want to pour into me and invest in me. And so that's been a particular enjoyment for me.
Well, you gave me a boost in the beginning of our conversation and saying, how things change the dynamic of the room when I walk in. One of the reasons that dynamic changes when you walk into the space is what you're not experiencing. It's real. It's happening. Unfortunately, the ugly does happen in that competition space, but you walk in already looking for a collaborative engagement.
Mhm.
And so because you're looking for that, I think that that's what you're attracting. You are elevating the space for those who are looking to serve the same community. We know those who have been given significance, Todd, time, talent, and treasure, they're looking like they've been given success, excuse me.
Mhm.
They're looking for significance in that success. those dollars are not going to run out. We feel like we have to, oh my gosh, if they're giving here, that the average, and I'm quite sure that my number is not even accurate at this point, but at one point, donors were given to 7 different organizations,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so we don't need to make that decision for them.
Yeah.
They already know that they want to be significant in the success that they've been given. And so when they can see, hey, when I give, there's sustainability
Right.
well beyond me, that is what's attractive to the supporters that are out there. The other piece that I think that makes a huge difference as far as you being in the room is the voice that you give to the voiceless. And again, those that you're serving, they can feel so unseen and unheard. I hear you do that in the media, working with policymakers, and so many more, in spaces that we're in. I'm curious, what's one of the tough conversations that you've had to
Mm.
even lead out publicly? And how did your personal leadership values shape how you spoke that out?
You trying to make me get political now, Wendy. Um, the reality is for me, and I was challenged on this last year about this time. So I thought I would, I thought I sounded really good, and I said to someone who's working in another large kind of international organization around food insecurity, and I talked
Mhm.
about the idea of speaking up for the people that we serve. And this person at the other organization pushed back a little and said, she asked me how we were giving the people we served an opportunity to speak up for themselves. And that has stuck with me this past year, because she was right. And so, um, again, I think a lot of the neighbors that we serve do often feel voiceless. When we hear politicians, when we hear policymakers demean certain groups of people,
Mhm.
there's a responsibility to speak up. If a if a politician, and we had one in our community, who called, you know, he said, food stamps is wasteful government spending. Well, I took that. We serve people who receive SNAP
Yeah.
benefits. You're
Yep.
talking about my people now, right? You don't demean the people that we serve
Yeah.
every day, because I know them,
Yep.
and I see the fight in them. I see what they're up against. So you have to speak. You have to speak up and challenge that. I take the approach of, if you say that, I'm going to invite you to come to Parkview and
That's
meet
right.
the people that you have stereotyped. And so we continue to offer invites to policymakers, and I think that's really important. And I don't have to get into a whole lot of kind of political discourse. I
Mhm.
just say what we're experiencing here
That's
at
right.
Parkview. We've experienced cuts to our SNAP Ed services that were provided by the Virginia Cooperative Extension Agency. And
Yep.
so the healthy cooking class that was going on at our Life Skills Institute, provided by SNAP Ed, is gone. Um, Nutrition education displays and food samplings and recipes provided by that same office at our food pantry are no longer occurring. Um, and so those policy decisions show up in the real world at Parkview in those ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's also preparing for continued increases in neighbors coming to our food pantry. Just in short, in my time, in 4 years, we've seen the average. In 2021, the average was 174 families coming to our food pantry. Our average for this year is currently over 370. So we far more than doubled.
Yes.
We've doubled in the number of students that we're serving with weekend meal bags and on-campus pantries in our schools in Lynchburg, from a 500 students a week to 1,000 students a week. As SNAP benefits are reduced, those numbers will continue to increase. It's not politics; it's just reality.
That's not politics, that's people.
It's
Right.
people.
And that's what I'm hearing. That is exactly it. You're like, don't bring me into this political space. It's people,
It
right? We
is.
can get caught up in, but I feel this, and what about that, and the fact of you're seeing the individual. When you said, hey, wait, you're talking about my people here, because you know the individual stories. And so you're allowing people who are making these statements to be educated
Yes.
so that others could be elevated.
And I think that is part of our responsibility. I tell our staff,
Yes.
our first job is to serve our neighbors. That is job one. to speak up for them and to give them an opportunity to speak for themselves is a close second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what I have experienced, let me frame it this way: when I was a full-time pastor, um, I cared about issues like food insecurity and housing insecurity and unemployment. The congregations I led, we tried to do things about that
Mm-hmm.
as best we could. I did not know people experiencing those circumstances at the level that I do now. Now these are the neighbors I meet every day. And so I take that seriously. That people trust us with their stories. That is a delicate trust that we have to hold very carefully. And so they have trusted me with that story that they're
Mm.
experiencing. And so how do I amplify their voice of what they're experiencing? How do I, inviting people, whether it's an elected official or inviting a faith community to come and serve at Parkview, um, I want them to have that same experience that I've had, where they get to know their neighbor who is experiencing life differently than they are.
Yes.
To put a face on that issue, it can feel very distant times.
Yeah.
That they
Yeah.
know someone who is experiencing food insecurity or unemployment. I think that's really important. And I think that's a really important responsibility that Parkview has, is to provide those opportunities for different groups to intersect and get to know one another.
Because we all live and do life in this community
Absolutely.
together. And that's not just true here in Lynchburg, Virginia. And it's not just true.
No.
So much of what you shared is not just true in the nonprofit space or serving those in the in an that are in the underserved space. That's our responsibility in leadership. We could go on, and
Mhm.
this could be 4 episodes in one. But as we turn the corner and wrapping things up, I want to hear from your heart, as this is going out to, yes, nonprofit
Mhm.
leaders, faith-based leaders, but leaders across this country who are listening, who are saying, hey, with what I have out in front of me and who I'm called to serve, the weight of what we're talking about, the people, again, messy. Life
Mhm.
is messy. How do you stay grounded and make sure that you stay tied to the purpose of the people that you're called to
Mhm.
serve? What's your charge to other leaders out there who are saying, man, it's coming fast and furious?
Yeah.
Well, what would you leave them with?
I'll say this, and again, this is one of those things that could spin off into a whole other episode. Is you've got to learn to take care of yourself.
Come on.
I have don't be afraid to get a counselor, get a therapist. I mean, I've done it. You got to stay healthy yourself if you want to lead people well. I waited longer than I should have to seek that kind of support and help. I've done that. Um, Staying focused, again, coming at it as a person of faith, staying
Hmm.
grounded in my theology. Um, what are the words of Jesus about how we treat people? Um, how did Jesus treat the people he interacted with during his ministry? And try as best I can to model that, and to realize. And I look at it this way. And I tell my staff this: you're first. You're here to serve our neighbors. I'm here to serve you, to make
Hmm.
sure you're cared for. Um, I cannot serve 130,000 people a year as Todd, but I can try to serve the 14 people that work on staff with me, and to invest in them well, help them develop their skills, um, and to come alongside them. I do have the capacity for that. And so understanding my own limitations is a piece of it as well.
Well said. Well said. What a great charge to leave us with, especially where you started in that space of we got to be self-aware enough of what we can't pour from an empty cup. We say it, but truly, how are you being filled? And I love how you broke down that maths.
Hmm.
You got 14. How do
Yeah.
you pour into that 14 to exponentially speak into the hundreds of thousands that you're able to meals and families you're able to serve throughout a year? Todd, heavy weight that's out there, but you make it look light, and you are investing into your team so that the lift isn't as heavy because you are sharing it and really putting out there to our community how important it is for us to truly love our neighbor and practically do that. Before we wrap up, there's always this time that I'd love to do with the guests to give the audience a little behind the scenes.
Okay.
And this one's going to be fun for me because I want to hear your answers on this. Long day. What's your favorite way to reset?
Oh, okay. Long day. I like a good steak.
Come on.
I like playing soccer with my friends. I like a good TV show with my wife.
Nothing complicated.
Yeah.
I love it, right? Okay. Everyone knows I'm not the coffee girl. You coffee may be your thing. A good cup of hot cocoa, I can tell you where that is here in Lynchburg. But what's your favorite place to grab that drink and a conversation here in town?
Yeah. So if I'm going to get coffee with another colleague, probably going to White Hart. Yeah.
Nice.
I wrote about half of my dissertation at White Hart. I should have included them in the acknowledgments, honestly.
Absolutely. Mike would have loved that. I know you're a music guy. You have appreciation for it. We're of the same generation, so we can probably have some crossover. If your leadership style had a soundtrack, what genre, or if there's an artist that would align?
It's so mixed now, Wendy. Oh gosh. I'm going to listen to when I say country, you have to understand, I have very specific opinions on country music.
As you should.
We're talking not this bro pop country, no Florida Georgia line. Okay. Give me.
Oh, you just lost some friends.
I may have. Give me Tyler Childers. Give me John Prine, Willie Nelson. Benjamin Todd's my new one. Man, I've got his on repeat. Or it could be very 90s grunge.
Okay. Nirvana, wow, Todd.
I used to have long hair, wear flannel, and play drums poorly in a grunge band in high school. So
go look for those photos.
They're all not meaning on purpose.
I'd be remiss. Favorite ice cream flavor?
The cappuccino ice cream that Cravables had at our event last weekend. Check out that at Cravables. Yeah.
Okay.
Cappuccino or espresso. Yeah.
Well, you're the coffee guy through and through. Todd, you have inspired us. You inspire me each and every time we're in the same space and just watching what you're doing. You are pursuing excellence and empowering others to do the same. And I think that that's what resonates with me so well. Thank you for sharing just a glimpse of your story and just providing us, what we need to be ignited to continue in ours in an intentional way. The insights, the investment in others, just so impactful. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Wendy. I love being on with you.
Well, guys, I knew that it would be great and it would go way too fast, but Cultivate collaborators, that is a wrap, but it's never over because each of us brings our own special flavor to the mix of relational leadership. So until next time, let's keep stirring things up, making an impact, and yes, being better together. Thanks, everyone. Before we sign off today, I want to send out huge appreciation to our listeners for tuning in. I hope you felt seen, heard, and inspired to level up your own leadership journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're ready to level up your leadership, connect with me at cultivateforgood.com. That's cultivateforgood.com.